All right, welcome back to Musician's Edition. Today we're back in the mallet section of the Essential Elements book, and we're looking at number 53, Arali. So one really nice thing about this piece in this book is all of the stickings are already written in for you, right? In a lot of our videos, we spent a good amount of time deciding on stickings to use, right? Sometimes you'll get music where the composer or arranger or an editor has already given you all of the stickings, and that's really, really nice because then you don't have to make those decisions yourself. It's not terribly common, so you don't want to get used to it and rely upon that only, but sometimes you will see stickings that are already written in the piece. Now, you don't necessarily have to use those stickings in a concert band situation, right? Marching band is going to be a different story where we all want to look the same, so we all have to play with the same stickings. But in a concert band setting where you're the only one playing your mallet part or whatever, we don't have to worry about looking the same necessarily. So there may be times where you find a sticking that you don't like, you'd rather do it a different way, then you can feel free to change those, right? But for today, on this page, we're going to use all the written stickings, right? A good amount of the time through here, you'll see that the arranger or editor of this piece chose stickings that follow a lot of the rules that we've talked about, right? Most of the time through here, our left hand's playing the lowest note. Most of the time, our right hand is playing the highest note in each kind of passage, right? That's not always true. Like we've talked about, sometimes you have to sacrifice one or the other to make it all work and make it all fit together. But for the most part, that's kind of how it's laid out here for you, okay? So you'll notice in number 53, there is an A line and a B line, right? So A line is one part, B line is a separate part, okay? So when you're playing the A line, when you get to the end of the first line, you jump down to the second line that's labeled A, right? Sometimes it's a little confusing, and the natural thing that we'd want to do is jump down the line that says B, right? But that's for the players that are playing the B part, right? So we're going to start with the A part, so make sure when we get to that whole note at the end of the first line, you jump down to the next line that's marked with an A, all right? We also have some dynamics in here, right? At the end of measure 4, we have a decrescendo, right? Now, when we're playing the A part, we have a whole note. We can't really decrescendo a whole note on a glockenspiel like we could on a trumpet or a clarinet or a different instrument like that, right? So we're just going to play that whole note at our mezzo forte volume and just let it ring, right? You will notice if you glance down, the B part does have moving quarter notes, so they can play that decrescendo the way that it's written, okay? But then the next passage, starting in measure 5, is at piano, okay? So we're going to make sure that when we come back in after that whole note that we're nice and soft there, okay? You also see over measure 5, we have the letters S-I-M period, right? And that means we're going to play the same sticking that was written in the first 4 measures for measure 5, 6, 7, and 8. You can see the notes are the same. The only thing that's different is the dynamic, right? So we're going to use the exact same stickings. Sometimes it's beneficial to go through with your trusty pencil and write those stickings back in there in case you forget after you play the first 4 measures which stickings you need to use. Sometimes it's nice just to scribble those in there real quick. All right, so let's give this a shot. Let's try the first 4 measures following that written sticking. And it's the same key signature we've been working with, right? B flat, E flat. We start on that B flat and we jump to E flat right off the bat here, okay? Here we go, first 4 measures. 2, ready, go. All right?
This lesson is brought to you by the Musician's Edition practice book. Make goals and keep track of progress throughout the whole year. When you're done with this video lesson, don't forget to mark this practice time in your Musician's Edition practice book. Now back to the video.
Practice that until it feels really, really comfortable. A really nice thing about that is now measure 5, 6, and 7, and 8, you already have the notes down, right? All we have to do now is practice keeping it at that softer dynamic, okay? So let's try measure 5, 6, 7, and 8. Same notes, little softer, okay? Here we go. 1, 2, ready, go. All right? So now when you're comfortable with both of those, let's put them together. So 4 measures of mezzo forte, 4 measures of piano, right? Same sticking for both. Here we go. 1, 2, ready, go. Okay, now let's go ahead and skip down to the second line in the A part. You see our note is G there, right? We play 2 measures only on G, right? And then we have in the third measure of the second line, G, F, E flat, F, G, right? And you see that written sticking there, right, left, right, has our highest note being with our right hand, right? It doesn't have our lowest note with the left hand. Our lowest note is our right hand crossing over to E flat. That's just one of those sacrifices we have to make that passage work, right? But if you notice in there, the highest note we play it 2 times, G, F, E flat, F, back to G, right? So if you got to choose one or the other, whether my right hand can be the highest note or my left hand can be the lowest note, it's better to choose the one that you're playing more often to be the note that gets to follow that rule if you have to make that sacrifice, right? So let's try that, the first 4 measures of the second line of part A, starting on G. Notice we are back to mezzo forte here as well. Here we go. 2, ready, go. All right. And then there's that little crescendo in the third measure that you see also. So we're going to want to grow a little bit there. Okay. Now let's look at the last 5 measures here. So we start on G, right? We have G, G, F, E flat, and then F, C, F, right? Which is very similar to measure 2, right? That jump from F down to C back to F. You'll notice our right hand plays F, left hand plays C, right? Because F is the high note, C is the lower note, right? And then we have that E flat, D, C, D, E flat that's borrowed from measure 3 of the first line, right? So let's play the last 5 measures of this piece. Notice the last 2 measures are 2 whole notes, but they're at 2 different dynamics here, okay? So this is starting at 1, 2, 3, 4, the 5th measure of the second line of part A. Here we go. 1, 2, ready, go. All right, we just want to be really delicate with that last note there. So now that we've kind of worked through all of part A in chunks, let's go ahead and put the whole piece together, okay? Starting from the very beginning. Remember, now that we're going to do the whole piece, we're going to take our tempo down just a little bit so we have a little more time to think as we kind of pass from one chunk to the other chunk and start to knit them together, okay? So just a little bit slower, starting at the beginning here, trying to keep a close eye on our dynamics and making those changes as we go through the piece. Here we go. From the beginning. 1, 2, ready, go. All right, so that's the A line from number 53. Try as best you can to follow those written stickings, right? Remember, you can make decisions and change those, But for a piece like this where it's laid out really nice, there's not really a lot of awkward moments, follow those stickings and get used to them. And that's one way to kind of train yourself to be able to recognize what stickings to use, is to follow the ones that somebody else has kind of laid out for you, okay? So have fun practicing that. Remember, always break these down into chunks, right? And then slowly piece those chunks together as you build the piece up, all right? So happy practicing, and I will see you next time.